Hey folks, just a very quick little video this morning. So I've obviously been posting out a lot about the coming solar eclipse and looking at all the NASA and US defense research into this particular area, much of it concerned with the matter of dark matter. This is the three-pronged perfect storm. This is taking place during solar peak activity, which affects the electromagnetics of the Earth. It also includes in the same area the twin comet, the Twin Horn comet. Has previous names. I'm a little bit curious about the fact that the name actually has changed. I would like to know more about the pedigree because it's actually had three different names, and that does smell a little bit of a manipulation. Let's call it that way. And then the third storm, of course, is the April 8th storm. A lot of people talking about this, a lot of people referring this to the movie Leave the World Behind, which was produced by the Barack family. It's lots of articles way before now have talked about and gone into great details, all through very large published mainstream organisations about the secret meanings hidden within. It does occur to me that when basically mainstream starts siding with the fact that has secret meanings or has secret Easter eggs, notice the word emphasis on Easter, that this could be a gloriously fucking great way to suck people into an event, and it all turns out to be absolutely nothing. Y2K all over, and all the people like me that have been turning around saying you just get to look just a little tad more foolish. Willing to accept that particular point, but it does actually seem to be like, when we look, for example, at the issue of the radiation and the terrorist attacks and the role played by the Great White Line. That's the ship that goes out of control due to a cyber hack and ends up on the beach, literally chasing three African American people, named after the first ship to bring slaves to the state of Virginia, which of course, big, powerful Boston American families, and all that whole New York area. Well, we see, I want to call it's either Waffen Atom or Atom Waffen, but this is a white supremacist group that's actually been basically operating for about give a year or maybe a bit longer than that. They are specifically wanting to target the critical infrastructure, and they've had a number of sort of botched attempts, which do again smack on the fact that the FBI are really good at actually busting terrorists when the terrorists are their own ones, which they've actually set up to basically entrapped. And that's the only way the FBI ever seems to actually capture terrorists in the United States. So on that history alone, it does erase any little question mark about it. But the fact of the matter is that there actually have been helicopters cruising around Boston and Florida in the last 12 months, specifically sniffing out the risk of nuclear terrorism. So that's one of those little Easter eggs that sort of goes, well, that's pretty, life mirroring image. There is, of course, the ship runs into the on the ground, the Great White Line, but also we recently got the issue of the ship going into Baltimore. Sometimes ships do actually crash. It does happen. But again, I would like to know more about whether or not, because it reminds me of the Evergreen situation, and I'm pretty damn convinced that the ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal was subject to a cyber hack, and even though the navigational drawing of the old proverbial penis and ball sacks kind of make me feel that that's just the hackers for taking the piss there, right there. So so there's that factor. Then, of course, is the way that animals were acting weird behaviourally in the world. Leave them all behind with the deer and the flamingos and the birds, flying into windows. And this is all again quite interesting because since 2017, NASA actually has been running research programs into odd animal behaviour. Also, actually, by the way, noted during the Christchurch earthquake, there was a Canterbury University student that was also studying this phenomena. But yes, this is something which for this coming phenomenon, NASA is actually out there, and it is. It's kind of hard not to kind of go, oh, what the hell, when you see the chief character who ends up being infected by Lyme's disease, which I'll get to in a second, and with his little sister, and she's wearing the NASA t-shirt, and he's wearing the famous Obey shirt from from I can't remember that movie, but it's the one where it's the the WWF chap was in it, and became that particular artwork was then later used, replicated in a pro-Obama election banner, which was always a bit weird because that was almost like tongue in cheek in itself. Not that I actually have anything personally against any of these people, because I've never met them. I'm just reporting what I actually see. And of course, one of the last scenes, one of the scenes within the Believe the World Behind is the looking at the Earth, as it's all going to hell in a handbasket, and you can realise it's all taking place during a solar activity. So again, it could be just a coincidence, but the coincidences of these Easter eggs, emphasis again on the Easter, does seem to be actually mounting up, and even that the one of the deers in the Easter eggs is the character from Elliot from the movie I, Robot, directed by the same person, and that's of course a reference to cyber hacking, which is made throughout the movie, right to the very end, where you also see the reference to radiation detected in cities, and the reference to nuclear terrorist attacks in the bunker, again towards the end of the movie, which again is coinciding with what we've seen in the last 6 months, or in fact 6 months, last 4 months, basically of the signs that the US authorities are on high alert for a possible nuclear terrorist attack. There has been lots and lots of chatter of terrorist activity taking place in New York in the last month. In fact, it's very, very high level, and it's each case by itself is one string, which means nothing, but collectively it does point to a heightened alert status, which coincides with the deployment of the National Guard to New York. In fact, the deployment, as I pointed out, has been taking place throughout the eclipse zone in the United States, of the deployment of troops to the or National Guard troops, and especially along the Mexican line. And I do wonder whether we are going to see a massive flux of people in Mexico because of some natural disaster actually wanting to flee the hell out of there. We remember not that long ago, there's a big sudden tornado that took place in that sort of little enclave where sort of the alternative, people have sort of fled the United States. That's sort of been nailed pretty hard. That's just a little incident I'm mentioning as a side. But I just again mention that the heraldry of Mazatlan, basically the former seismic solar observatory in Mexico that goes back to the 1800s, with the wonderful picture of the deer on the front, all combined with the mermaids that are half man, half human, and vice versa. One's got the book, one's got the twin-horned devil, and that's all this backdrop on a solar eclipse, reflecting the fact that the place was actually a solar observatory. So again, this is where NASA is based. We are finding that CERN is also being based there, as they are also being based in Baltimore, Boston, which again, along that ecliptical line, with experimental research to be taking place on April the 8th. Again, that's the firing of rockets called Apia, which is the great serpent of Egypt, or of a battle between the serpent and the eagle, which we see reappear. That's actually the ultimate alchemist symbol. I mean, a lot of these symbols are from the Alchemist Codex, which is basically kind of a lot of the Greek societies in American universities kind of draw their own heraldry from this, and it's sort of like pseudo heraldic, but it does give you sort of an understanding that it's not just animals randomly plucked. There is a code going on here, and a very old established one that goes all the way back to the original Invisible University, which was basically the academics that got together, Protestant and Catholics, during the reign of Cromwell after Charles had been deposed. And it was the only way that intellectuals could actually, communicate academically without being persecuted by the Puritan Church, much like a lot of the Khazarian Jews actually fled to the New World and to Mexico, specifically using their shipping and connections and finance to establish themselves as a way of actually getting rid of, avoiding persecution. It's very easy to dump on that particular group of people, and I think they are very ancient, and there's a very esoterical. I mean, it's almost like they are the Jews within the Jews. I'm not intending to do that. I think they have been victims of it, but they are, if you want, within the inner circle of the intellectual intelligence here, who understands this sort of alchemistic codex, which is said with reference to the serpent and the eagle, which appears on the actual, again, on the Sinhala heraldry, along with that wonderful deer image. which then again appears on the port city of Mazatlan itself, where this NASA and CERN is going to be taking place, while at the same time, of course, the Artemis rocket is taking place, potentially looking for the impact that the eclipse actually has on black matter. And people say, well, it's just the sun going off for a wee bit. Well, how does that affect anything? I think probably the best thing to understand is that over here is signal A, let's call it the sun. Over here is, here's point A, the sun. Here is point B, the Earth. Goes along all the way. The gamma rays and various other ultra spectrums come from the sun to the Earth, all very well. And then the moon comes along and blocks that. And when it blocks that, it stops the wave. And that's when basically you've got the loss of signal propagation. It has an impact upon the planet on the ionosphere. And that's very much what the military and NASA are very interested in, in terms of their way of being able to capture and dominate the spectrum for many ranges, from signal communications to making sure that satellites operate, to developing next stage generation weapons. I would say, in fact, we are already in the second generation. We've moved past the atomic age. We're now in the age of electron warfare. The step of progress is to move now into the age of quark or of quantum warfare, and this is the ability to actually, control and manipulate the matter down to its subatomic level, down to its antimatter level. So there's got a lot of things, like you've got the miniature ice cube CERN in Antarctica, and that's been involved in this sort of research, and has been talking about what its research has been seen in terms of being able to remove that spectrum from the solar to be able to sort of see into the darkness or through the veil, if you like. And from that, capture the nuclei, which you can then use that as a kind of to open up a wormhole to look and explore into other particular dimensions, such as Dragonfly 44, which again I've now kind of actually mapped out. Yes, it's along that ecliptical line. So again, I think my heraldry is pretty damn good, along with that's on the heraldry that appeared on the National Reconnaissance Observatory Laboratory that was launched from Wallops, Virginia. Again, referenced in the, when it's not stretched to go too far, but it also includes the New Zealand Defence Force of also carrying a little package on that called Koroniko, which is a reference to a native bird. And again, it's all about communication. So my whole understanding about their NASA and the military's interest in the propagational qualities of this particular naturally occurring occurrence are quite I think I'm pretty on the map there. So maybe what will happen is that nothing will happen. Fingers crossed. I love it when I'm wrong. And this is just really a way for science to still, it's still important, because they're collecting information which is used for military purposes, but maybe the rest is just all big hype, and in 4 minutes later nothing occurs. But I think it's a safe thing to say that don't panic, carry on with your normal life, but make sure that you have got the basics that you actually need. So if there is an event that takes place, that you are at least able to withstand that particular initial onslaught crisis. You should have these things anyway. It's just standard. Any responsible family should be having 2 weeks of food, candles, sauces to light the candles, first aid kits, bandages, water, probably a couple tanks of gas if you can afford it. Again, none of these things are all expensive if you do it now. That's why you need to get the stuff built up over a period of time and maintain it. And it's just basic maintenance. And when we're living in a very fluid, crisis, vulnerable world at the moment, and overall, what we're also seeing from all of these things that are taking place, is actually how vulnerable our actual critical infrastructure actually is. And again, it's very interesting. What one thing I also mention is Craig Rogers at Otago University has been carrying out a $50 million research project in relating to the solar activity's impact upon our transmission lines, and talking about basically how these events, solar tsunamis and so on, can actually impact upon our critical infrastructure. He's also noted that the remedial, it's on my website, but it's RCB, and it's basically a system that the Americans have set up to basically, in the event that if they were to be attacked electromagnetically, they can sort of throw the shield, basically an EMF shield up, and it deflects the basically the negative. Basically, what happens is when your nuclear bomb goes off, your total electrical count gets stimulated, and that will overload the systems and basically affect propagation. Well, the remedial RCB, I think it's called, deflects against that. And that's good if you're under the umbrella. Not so good if you're outside the umbrella, because then that will take it from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, and then that discharges into the southern hemisphere in the forms of plasmoid boloids and so on. And then we get the EMF field, and so if we're not shielded because we don't have one, then we end up being the ones that actually get copted. So even though this could be a North American event, in the situation where that's operating, we could actually be the ones that end up with the 2 weeks worth of blackouts, the planes dropping from the sky, the GPS has all been actually messed up. And this is one of the things that Craig Rogers has actually warned the government about. Well, hey, we've got to be careful about this thing, because while it has a beneficial effect, it does actually have a negative effect, and it can actually really, cause some massive disruptions. People like Professor David Last, who died while flying over the BT Tower in Wales, while he was basically suggesting that that effectively these systems that we've tied ourselves into, like for example, the communication system that we use, the air control system that New Zealand uses, ties us into the American air control system. Very, very vulnerable to hacking, very, very vulnerable to GPS spoofing, and this is what Professor Last was warning about when his plane basically, electronics collapsed and he crashed into the sea. Similar phenomenon occurred with Hercules in about 2019, while they were actually exploring this phenomenon as well. Took out a brigadier general and a electromagnetic sensing bunch of academics that were aboard that, and that was in the Drake's Passage. And just to conclude all this, the reason why I mention all this is that yes, HARP is going to be active during this particular area. And the thing about HARP is it's not just Alaska. That HARP is actually two signals. It's from Alaska through to just above Golden Bay in New Zealand and South Island. It's the Fairwell Spit is the intersection point to another signal, which I think is actually the Super Dome. I know it has a different name. It's not HARP, but it's I'm going off the top of my memory. But that one actually comes from Antarctica, from the same base, Scott Edmondson, where the Ice Cube miniature surround. A lot of big talks been mentioned before on these disclosure stuff, so suggesting that Ice Cube is actually all about causing earthquakes. I think that's a little bit disingenuous, because the technology and research that they were developing, which has that seismic relationship, actually goes back to all the way to the 1970s, way before that was ever bound. So I think that's actually a slight distraction of smoke and mirrors. Okay, so that's pretty much everything that I now know. Shared that with you, and as I said, let's just go on like life normal. Let's not panic. I do get, I sort of, when I start to notice things get really, really shared on social media, that's actually the ones when I get a little bit, going, well, hey, wait a minute. They tend to, they shut me down when I'm doing good, and they vomit my voice. That's almost the litmus test. The days when I know that I get good reaches, the days I know I'm not on target. Anyway, have a good day. Or have a good day for all three of you watching this.